Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, the channel where history, art, and collecting come together to bring you the fascinating stories behind some of the world's most remarkable postage stamps. In today's episode, we will dive into the value, history, and market trends of a beautiful and highly collectible American stamp.
Is it worth anything more than
Frank
1 cent?
Lloyd Wright commemorative
Let's
issue.
find out everything you need
This
to know about
iconic
the
stamp
1975
not only celebrates
marked
one of
penny and what
America's
it's really
greatest
worth in today's
architects,
collector market.
but also captures an era
off,
of
let's
U.S.
understand
postal
what the
history
no-mint
that
mark
continues
means.
to intrigue
The
collectors around the
1975
globe.
Lincoln penny without a
The
mint
Frank
mark was
Lloyd
struck
Wright
at the Philadelphia
2-cent
Mint.
stamp was first issued
Back
in 1966,
the
honoring
Philadelphia
the
Mint did not
legendary
place any mint
architect
mark
whose
on pennies,
groundbreaking
so this is
designs
perfectly normal
transformed
and not
modern
considered an
architecture.
error.
Known
This
for
practice was
masterpieces
standard
like
until
Falling Water and the
2017,
Guggenheim
when the
Museum,
U.S. Mint began
Wright's
adding
legacy
the P
extends
mint mark to
far
1 cent
beyond
coins
buildings.
as part of the Philadelphia
His philosophy
Mint's
of organic
225th
architecture
anniversary.
inspired generations,
So, if you
and the
found a
United States Postal
1975
Service
penny with
commemorated
no mint
him
mark,
with
it's
this
a Philadelphia
finely engraved
issue,
stamp.
and you've got exactly
Printed
what the
in
mint
a
intended
striking
to
blue
release.
tone, the stamp features
Design-wise,
Wright's
the
portrait against an
1975 penny
abstract
features the familiar
architectural
bust of
background,
President Abraham
capturing
Lincoln
his
on the
creative
obverse,
spirit in
designed by
miniature.
Victor David Brenner.
For collectors,
This
it is a
design
stamp
has been a
that
staple
blends
of
history,
American coinage since
artistry,
1909,
and cultural
making it one
significance.
of the longest-running
Now,
portraits
let's
in
turn
U.S.
to the
coin
most
history.
important question for today.
The reverse of the
What is the
1975
value
penny
of the
displays
Frank
the
Lloyd
Lincoln
Wright
Memorial,
2-cent
which
stamp
had been
in
used
today's
since
stamp market?
1959 to replace
Like
the
all
wheat year's
collectibles,
design.
the price of this
It
stamp
carries the
depends on a
usual
variety of
inscriptions,
factors,
"In God We Trust,"
including its
Liberty,
condition,
the date,
rarity, and whether it
1975,
is
and on
unused
the
or
back,
postmarked.
United States
A
of
mint
America,
condition,
e pluribus
never
unum,
hinged example
and
with
1
full
cent.
original gum
Now
is
let's talk
generally
about
worth
mintage
more
and
than one
rarity.
that has been used or
The
damaged.
Philadelphia Mint produced a
In today's
staggering
collector
number of these
market,
pennies,
a standard
over
mint
5.4
condition Frank
billion in
Lloyd
total.
Wright 2-cent stamp
That's
often
right,
sells
more than
for
5
around
billion
1 to
of these
3
coins
US
were minted
dollars,
and entered
depending
circulation.
on demand and quality.
Because of this high production
However,
number,
if you
the
find one in a
1975
perfect
no-mint
post
marked
office
penny
fresh
is not
state
rare in
or
most
part of a
cases.
complete commemorative set,
You can still
you can
find them
see it
easily
fetch
in your
between
pocket
$5
change,
and
in
$10
circulation,
among
and
dedicated
especially in
collectors.
coin jars that haven't
Of
been
course,
touched
there
for
are always
decades.
special cases where the
As
value
a
can
result,
be much
a
higher.
dirty or heavily
Rare
circulated
printing errors,
1975 penny with no
misperforations,
mint mark
or
is
unique
usually worth
cancellations
exactly
can
what it
raise the
says,
price
1
considerably.
cent.
For example,
But that doesn't
a
mean every
well-centered stamp with a
1975
very
penny
light,
is worthless.
visually appealing cancellation
Coin
mark
values depend
might
greatly
appeal
on
to those
condition
who
and
collect
appearance.
fine used examples,
If your
sometimes
1975
bringing in
penny
double
is
the
in
price of a
uncirculated or
typical
mint-state
used
condition,
copy.
it could be worth
In
a
the
bit
high-end
more.
market,
A
particularly
coin with bright red
well-preserved
color
plate
and no
blocks
signs of
or
wear may
full
sell
sheets
for
of the
$1
Frank
to
Lloyd Wright
$5,
2-cent
depending on
stamp
the quality.
can sell for anywhere
And
between
coins
20
graded
and 50 US
MS65
dollars.
red or higher by
While that
professional
might not
grading
sound like a
services like
fortune,
PCGS
it
or
represents a
NGC can
significant
command
return
prices
for
up
a
to
small piece of
$1,000
paper
to $2,000,
originally worth
especially
just
if
2
they have no
cents.
blemishes, strong
The current
strike,
interest
and
in
good eye
mid-20th
appeal.
century commemorative
While these
stamps
aren't
is
extremely
also
valuable,
pushing the
it's
market
still
value
impressive for a
slowly
coin that
upward.
was once pocket
As more
change.
collectors specialize in
There
the
are also error
1950s
coins
and
and varieties to
1960s
keep an
era,
eye out for.
demand for stamps like the
These are
Frank
the
Lloyd
real
Wright
hidden
issue
treasures in the world of
continues to
modern
grow.
pennies.
Online
A
platforms such as
1975
eBay,
no-mint marked penny
Hipstamp,
with an error,
and Delcamp
such as a double
are now
die,
popular
off-center
places to
strike,
find and
die
sell
cracks,
these stamps.
clipped planchet,
Auction
or broad
results
strike
show that
can
collectors are
significantly
willing to
increase
pay
in
more
value.
for pristine
For
examples
example,
with
an
strong
off-center
visual appeal.
1975
So
penny
if
that
you are
still
holding
shows
on
the
to
full
a
date
high-grade
can sell
copy,
for
now might be a
$2,000
good
to
time to consider
$5,000
selling
depending
or
on how
at least
far
having it
off-center the design
appraised.
is.
Another
A
factor
strong
that
double die
influences
error
the
with
value
visible
is
doubling
the
in
stamp's
lettering or
place
date
in
could bring
thematic
in
collections.
$100 or more if
Frank
it's
Lloyd
clear
Wright
and in
is a
high grade.
celebrated cultural figure,
These error
and
coins
collectors
are
who
rare,
focus
but
on
they do
famous
turn up in
people,
circulation from
architecture,
time to
or
time.
American history
So
often
always
seek the
examine
stamp
your
to
coins
complete their
carefully
thematic
using a
displays.
magnifier or coin
This
loupe to catch the
cross-category
details
appeal
others
gives
might
the
miss.
stamp an advantage in the marketplace,
Another factor to
as
consider
it
is the
attracts
color
not just
classification
traditional
of the coin.
philatelists, but also
Lincoln
fans of
cents are graded as
architecture
red,
and design.
RD, red
As a
brown,
result,
RB,
demand
or
remains
brown,
steady,
BN,
and prices have
depending
shown
on how much
resilience
original
even
mint
in
color
fluctuating
remains.
market conditions.
A bright red
If you are considering
1975
selling your
penny
Frank
in
Lloyd
mint-state
Wright
condition
2-cent
is the
stamp,
most
the
desirable
best
and valuable.
strategy is to first
In
assess its
contrast,
condition
a dark
carefully.
brown or dirty
Look
coin,
for crisp
which is common with
perforations,
circulated
bright
examples,
and
will
unfaded
usually
color,
only be
and a
worth
gum
face
surface
value
free
unless it
of
has an
hinge
error
marks
or some
if it
other
is
unique
unused.
characteristic.
If you have a used copy,
So, let's
check
recap.
for neat
A
cancellations and minimal
1975
wear.
Lincoln penny with
Photographing
no
the
mint mark is
stamp in
not an
high
error and is
resolution
not rare.
and listing it with
was
a
minted at the
detailed
Philadelphia
description
Mint,
can
where
help
no
you
mint
reach
mark
more
was used on
buyers and
pennies at that
potentially
time.
increase its selling
In
price.
circulated or dirty
Remember,
condition,
collectors
this coin is
often
worth
pay a
about 1
premium
cent.
for well-documented,
However, in
accurately
mint state
described
condition,
items.
it may be worth $1,000
For those of you
to
just
$2,000
starting your stamp
in
collection,
coins with
the
confirmed
Frank
errors
Lloyd
can
Wright
be worth
2-cent
much more
stamp is an
depending on the type
excellent
and
piece to
severity of the
acquire.
error.
It's affordable,
If you think your
historically
coin looks different
significant,
or
and a
unusual,
perfect
it's always
example
worth
of
getting a
mid-century
second opinion
American
from a
commemorative
professional
design.
coin dealer or submitting
While
it
it
for
may not
grading.
make you instantly rich,
Next up, the
it's the
2000
type of
Lincoln
stamp that
penny with
holds
no
its
mint
value
mark.
well and enhances the prestige of any collection.
Seems like just another piece
Over
of
time,
loose change.
as interest in 20th century
But if you've ever held
architecture
one
and
in your
design
hand
history
and wondered why
grows,
there's no
this
letter
stamp
under the
may
date or
become
whether it
even
could be
more
worth
sought
than
after.
1 cent, then
To
you're in
sum
the
up,
right place.
the Frank Lloyd Wright
Today
2-cent
we'll
stamp
explore its
is a
history,
small
why it
but
has no mint
meaningful
mark,
slice
what
of
condition
American
affects its
history.
value,
In
and what it
today's
might be
market,
worth in the coin
individual
market right
examples in standard condition
Let's begin
typically
with the
sell for a
basics.
few dollars,
The
while
2000
premium
Lincoln
copies
cent
and
features
unique
the classic
varieties
portrait of
can
President
fetch
Abraham
significantly
Lincoln on the
more.
front, or
Its
obverse,
connection to
of the
one of the
coin,
most
a design that has
influential
been in use
architects
since
of the 20th
1909
century
and was created by
ensures
Victor
that it
David
will
Brenner.
remain a desirable
On the back
collectible
of the
for
coin,
years to
you'll
come.
find the Lincoln
Whether you
Memorial,
are a seasoned
design
collector
introduced
or a
in
beginner,
1959
adding
and
the
used
stamp to
until
your album is
2008.
like holding a tiny
This
piece
reverse
of
shows the full
architectural
view of the
history
Lincoln
in your
Memorial
hands.
in Washington,
Next
D.C.
up, the
And if you
most
look closely,
elegant and
you can even
valuable
see a
U.S.
tiny
stamps
statue
from
of
the
Lincoln
late
seated in the
19th
middle of the
century,
monument,
the
a nice
$2
hidden detail
James
for those
Madison
who
stamp
appreciate
from the
craftsmanship
series
in
of
coin design.
1894.
Now,
This is a
when you look
stamp
at your
that not
2000
only
penny and
reflects
see no
America's
mint mark,
postal
it
history,
simply
but
means it was
also
minted at the
embodies an
Philadelphia
era of
Mint.
intricate engravings,
For many
high
years,
face
the
values,
Philadelphia
and
Mint did
limited
not use a
circulation
P mint
that
mark on
continues to
1-cent
intrigue
coins.
collectors today.
This practice
If you've
remained
ever
true in the
wondered
year
why
2000,
certain stamps
so
from
the
this
absence of a
period
mint mark is
command such
completely normal
respect in
and
the
not a minting
philatelic
error.
world, then this is
The
the
only time the
perfect
Philadelphia
episode for
Mint
you.
used a P on
The
pennies
$2
was in
Madison stamp was
2017
first
for a
issued
special
in
release commemorating the Mint's
1894 as part of the
225th
first
anniversary.
Bureau of Engraving
So
and
if your
Printing
2000
Definitive
penny has
Series.
no mint mark,
Before
you are
that,
holding a
the
standard
United States
Philadelphia
contracted
coin.
private companies to
In
produce
terms of
postage
mintage,
stamps.
the year
But in
2000
the
saw
early
the production of an
1990s,
enormous
the
number
U.S.
of
government
pennies.
took over this
The
responsibility.
Philadelphia Mint alone
The
struck
result
over
was a
5.5
series of stamps
billion
that are
Lincoln
now
cents that year
legendary
without a
among
mint mark.
collectors, not just
Because of
for
this
their
massive
historical
production, the
significance,
2000 no
but
mint mark
also
penny
for their
is considered very
extraordinary
common,
craftsmanship.
and in dirty or heavily
The
circulated
$2
condition,
Madison
it's
is
usually worth
instantly
just 1 cent.
recognizable with its
face
deep
value.
blue ink, ornate
Most of these
frame,
coins have
and the
been in
finely
circulation for
detailed
over 2
portrait of
decades,
James
which
Madison,
means they've
the
picked up
fourth
scratches,
president of the United
discoloration,
States
and
and
general
one of the
wear that greatly
principal
reduces their
architects of the
collector
U.S.
appeal.
Constitution.
However,
The portrait
not
is
all
framed by
2000 pennies are
bold
created
scroll work
equal.
with the
While
denomination
the average
clearly marked in
circulated
the
coin
corners,
may be worth
making
1
it
cent,
both visually
uncirculated
stunning
or
and
mint-state
highly
coins,
collectible.
those that were never used and still have their
What
original
makes this
shine,
stamp
can be worth
particularly
more.
fascinating is its
A
original
2000 no
purpose.
mint mark penny
Back in the
in
late
MS-65
1800s,
red condition,
$2
which is a
was an
coin that has full
enormous
red
amount of
luster
money,
and no wear,
worth the
can
equivalent
sell
of
for
over
$1,000
$60 US
to
today.
$5,000.
High-denomination
If the
stamps
coin
like
is
this
in
were rarely
MS-66 or
used for everyday
MS-67
mail.
red, the
Instead,
value could
they
jump
were
to
primarily
$10,000
issued
to
for large
$50,000
parcels,
or more,
registered letters,
depending on its
or
high appeal,
high-value
strike
shipments that
quality,
required
and the
extra
demand from
postage.
collectors.
This limited
Some of the
practical use meant
highest-graded
that far
2000
fewer of
no-mint
these
mark
stamps
pennies
were
have sold
sold
at
compared
auction
to
for over
lower
$10,000,
denominations,
but
and
these are
even
exceptionally
fewer
rare and
survived
require
in good
professional
condition over
grading
the
from
decades.
services like
This
PCGS
scarcity
or
is one of the
NGC.
key reasons why the
But where it
$2
gets even
Madison
more
has
interesting is when
become
we talk
such
about
a
era
desirable
coins.
item in the stamp market.
Every year, a small
Now
number
let's
of
talk about
pennies are
value
struck with
in
minting
today's
mistakes,
market.
and the year
As with
2000
all
is no
collectible
exception.
stamps, condition
If your
is
2000
king.
penny has a
The
double
market
die
price
error,
for the
or
$2
lettering or
Madison
date
varies
appears
widely
slightly
depending
doubled,
on
it
factors
could
such
be
as
worth
centering,
$25,000 to
perforation
$700,
quality, color
depending on the
vibrancy,
strength of the doubling
and
in
whether
the
the
coin's
stamp is
condition.
mint or used.
Other valuable errors
A heavily
to look for
used
include
or
off-center
damaged
strikes,
copy might
where the
sell
coin
for
is not
around
aligned correctly
$100 to
during minting,
$200 US
clipped
dollars.
planchets, where a
However,
piece of
a
the coin is
fine
missing,
used
and broad
example with a
strikes,
neat
which can make the
cancellation
coin appear
can
wider and
easily
flatter
reach
than normal.
$300 to $500,
These kinds of errors are
especially if the
always in
centering
demand
is
by
decent.
collectors and can
When it comes to
significantly raise the
mint
value of
condition
what might
examples with
otherwise be a
original
common
gum,
coin.
the value can be
Color also
significantly
matters in the
higher.
coin world.
A lightly hinged mint
Lincoln
copy
pennies are
might fetch
classified
between
by color,
$1,000
red,
and
RD,
$2,000 US
red brown,
dollars.
RB,
And
brown,
if you are fortunate
BN.
enough to own a
Red
superbly
coins have
centered,
preserved their original
never
copper
hinged
shine and are
example
the
with
most
rich,
valuable.
deep color,
Brown
you could be
coins,
looking at a value
especially
in the
those that are
range of
dirty or have been handled
$5,000 to
a lot, are the most
$10,000
common
or
and least
more at
valuable.
major auctions.
If your
The
2000 penny
auction
still
world
has a
has
bright
seen
red
some
appearance and no
remarkable
wear,
sales of the
it's worth
$2
taking a
Madison.
closer look,
In one
because it
notable
may
example,
qualify as a
a
mint state
perfectly
coin with added
centered,
value.
never hinged copy
So,
with
let's break it
exceptional
all
color
down.
and freshness sold for
2000
well
Lincoln
over
penny with no mint mark is a
$15,000,
Philadelphia-issued
a
coin and
record
is
that
not
underlines
rare.
how rare
In
top-quality
dirty or heavily
examples are.
circulated uncirculated condition,
Another
it is
point to
typically
remember
worth 1
is that
cent.
plate blocks and
However,
multiples of
if the
this
coin is
issue
in
are
uncirculated or
exceptionally
mint-state
scarce,
condition,
and
its
their value
can
can
rise to a
multiply
few dollars
accordingly.
or more.
For instance, a block
The
of
real
4
money
in
lies
mint
in
condition
rare
can
coins,
command prices
especially
that go
double
far
dies or
beyond the
off-center
sum of the
strikes,
individual
which can bring in
stamps,
tens to hundreds of
sometimes
dollars,
reaching into the
depending on how
tens of
dramatic and
thousands
clear
of
the error
dollars.
is.
This is why
If you
serious
believe your coin
collectors
has
and
any of these
investors
features,
alike
it's
pay
worth
close
examining
attention
under
when such
magnification
items
or
appear
showing
at
it to a
auction.
professional coin dealer.
One of the charms of the $2 Madison stamp lies in its production details. Being an engraved stamp, every line and shading was cut into steel plates by master engravers at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. This technique gave the stamp its sharp detail and tactile feel, something that modern printing methods often lack. The deep blue ink was chosen for its richness and contrast, ensuring that Madison's portrait stood out clearly against the intricate frame. Over time, some copies have faded or been exposed to environmental wear, which is why vibrant, original color examples fetch premium prices. Another fascinating aspect is how the $2 Madison fits into thematic collecting. Madison is not only remembered as a U.S. president, but also as a key figure in the drafting of the Bill of Rights. Collectors who focus on presidential history, constitutional history, or significant figures in American governance often seek this stamp as a centerpiece in their collections. Additionally, high-value stamps from the classic period attract those who specialize in the so-called Big Blue Album era, where these grand denominations hold pride of place. If you own a $2 Madison, the first step in determining its value is to have it examined by a professional philatelic expert or a reputable grading service. These experts can assess centering, gum condition, and any hidden faults that may affect the price. Stamps that are expertly certified often sell for more because buyers have confidence in the authenticity and condition. For sellers, platforms like Siegel auctions, heritage auctions, or major philatelic fairs are the best places to find serious buyers willing to pay top market prices. In conclusion, the $2 James Madison stamp from 1894 is a shining example of American philatelic artistry and history. Its high face value, limited usage, and stunning engraved design make it a standout collectible. In today's market, values range from a few $100s for average used examples to many thousands for pristine mint copies. This is a stamp that represents both financial and historical value, making it a prize for any collector lucky enough to own one. Whether you collect for passion, investment, or a blend of both, the $2 Madison is a testament to why stamp collecting remains one of the most rewarding hobbies in the world. Next up, the classic era of U.S. stamp production. The 2-cent Farming in the West stamp. This issue is not just a tiny piece of printed paper, it's a vivid window into the life and work of America's westward expansion at the turn of the 20th century. Known for its striking carmine red color and finely detailed engraving, it remains a favorite among both specialized collectors and those who simply appreciate the artistry of early American postage. The 2-cent Farming in the West stamp was issued in 1898 as part of the celebrated Trans-Mississippi Exposition issue, a series that is widely regarded as one of the finest sets of engraved stamps ever produced by the United States. The exposition itself was held in Omaha, Nebraska, and aimed to showcase the development, industry, and culture of the American West. The stamp's central vignette depicts two horses pulling a plow while a farmer works the soil, with a team of workers in the background, an image that perfectly symbolizes agricultural progress and the hard work that built the nation's frontier. The design was engraved with incredible detail, from the muscles of the horses to the furrows in the soil, making it a miniature work of art. In its time, the 2-cent denomination was the standard rate for mailing a first-class letter within the United States, meaning this stamp saw widespread use. Because of that, most surviving examples today are used, and many have heavy cancellations or wear from postal handling. Mint, never hinged examples are considerably harder to find, especially with perfect centering and rich original color. Collectors often note that the deep carmine red ink used on this stamp can fade over time if not stored carefully, so vivid, bright examples are especially prized in the market. When it comes to value, the range for the 2-cent Farming in the West stamp can vary significantly based on condition. A heavily used and worn copy might only sell for a few dollars, as it's a common stamp in lower grades. However, a fine to very fine used example with a light, attractive cancellation can bring in $10 to $20 US. Mint, unhinged examples in decent condition usually trade in the range of $30 to $50. Where the
Stick with me
real
as we
excitement
uncover all the
happens
facts,
is with
including
never
how to
hinged
spot any
mint
special
examples
varieties
with
and what this coin
excellent
is worth in
centering.
today's
These
collector
can
market.
easily fetch
Let's
$100 to
begin with the
$200, and in some
The
cases,
2008 Lincoln
exceptional
cent
copies
features the
have sold
classic
for
image of
several
President
hundred
Abraham
at
Lincoln on the
specialized
obverse,
auctions.
designed by
The
Victor
highest
David Brenner.
prices are reserved for
This iconic
superbly
portrait
graded
has remained
stamps
on the penny
that meet
since
the highest
1909,
philatelic
making it the
standards.
longest
For
running
instance,
coin design
auction
in
houses
United
have
States
sold
history.
perfectly
On the
centered,
reverse
mint,
side,
never
the coin
hinged
displays the
examples
Lincoln
for
Memorial,
$400
a design
to
that was first
$500
introduced in
US.
1959
Plate
and
blocks,
remained until the design
multiples of
changed in
4 or
2009,
more stamps
when the
with
Mint
the
introduced
original
the
printing
bicentennial
plate
Lincoln
number in the
cent
margin,
series.
can command
So
even
the
higher
2008
premiums,
penny is
often
actually
reaching
the
well
last
over
year to feature the Lincoln
$1,000,
Memorial
depending
reverse,
on condition
which makes
and
it notable
centering.
in numismatic
Such
history as
items
the
are
end of an era for that
particularly rare
design.
because they were less
Now,
commonly
if you
saved
look at your
intact.
2008 penny and
The
notice that
engraving
there is no mint
process
mark
used
below
for the
the year,
stamp
don't
is
be
a
alarmed.
testament to the craftsmanship
This is
of
not
the
a minting
Bureau of
error.
Engraving and Printing
The
during
absence of
its
a mint
golden
mark on
age.
a Lincoln penny
The
simply
fine
means it was
lines,
produced at the
shading, and
Philadelphia Mint.
intricate border designs
For most of
required
U.S. minting
exceptional
history,
skill from
pennies
the
struck in
engravers.
Philadelphia did
This
not
was a
carry
time
a
before
P
mass
mint mark.
production shortcuts.
This
Every
tradition
detail
continued
was
through
cut in the steel
2008.
plates by hand,
The only
and
time
each
a
sheet
P
was
mint
printed
mark
with
appeared on a
precision.
Lincoln cent was
This
in
level of artistry
2017
is
for
one
a
of the
special
reasons
issue
why the
commemorating the
Trans-Mississippi
225th
series, and
anniversary of the
especially the
Philadelphia
2-cent
Mint.
Farming in the West
So,
stamp,
your
remains a
2008 penny
favorite
with no
among
mint mark is
collectors over
completely
a century
normal.
later.
It was intended to be struck that way.
The historical
Now let's
context
talk
also
about how
plays
many of
a
these
major
coins were
role in the
made.
stamp's appeal.
In
The image
2008,
is not just
the Philadelphia
decorative,
Mint
it tells
produced
the story
over
of
2.5
America's
billion Lincoln
agricultural
pennies.
expansion
That's
into the
right,
plains
more
and
than
western
2.5
territories
billion
during the
coins,
late
making
19th
it one of the
century.
most common
The
modern coins in
Trans-Mississippi
circulation.
Exposition itself
Because of this
was a
extremely high
celebration of
mintage,
progress
the
and
2008
optimism,
no mint
even
mark
though it
penny
took
is not
place during
considered
an
rare by
economic
collectors,
depression.
especially
Stamps
if it
like
is found
this
in
served
dirty,
as
worn,
miniature
or heavily
ambassadors
circulated
of that
condition.
message, traveling
In most
across the
cases,
country
such a
and
coin
even
is worth
overseas,
exactly 1
carrying
cent,
both
its face
mail
value.
and a piece of national
However,
pride.
there is still some
For
potential
new
for added
collectors,
value,
the 2-cent
depending on the
Farming in the
condition
West
and
stamp
grade of the
is
coin.
an accessible yet
A
historically
2008 Lincoln
significant
penny in
addition to a
uncirculated or mint
collection.
state condition,
It's a stamp that
particularly
bridges
those with a bright
everyday
red
postal
appearance and no
history
signs
with
of wear,
high art
can be
and
worth more
national
than face
storytelling.
value.
It can be
A
found
coin
relatively
graded
affordably in
MS65
used
red
condition,
could sell for
making it a
$10,000
perfect
to
starting point for
$30,000
anyone
wild coins
interested
in
in
higher
the
grades like
Trans-Mississippi
MS66
series.
or
For advanced
MS67 red
collectors,
might fetch
pursuing a
$10,000 to
top-grade example or a
$50,000 or
full
more,
set of the series
especially if they
can
are
be a
slabbed and
rewarding
certified by
challenge that
professional
adds
grading
depth and
companies like
prestige to their
PCGS or
albums.
NGC.
If you have the stamp
These
in your
top-grade
collection,
coins are
the
not
best
found in
way to
everyday
preserve its
change,
value
but they
is
can
by
be discovered
storing
in
it in a
uncirculated
climate-controlled
rolls or mint sets
environment
that were stored
away from
properly
direct
since
sunlight and
2008.
humidity. Use
Now,
acid-free
here's where
mounts
things
or
get
stock
even more
books to
exciting.
protect the gum on
While the
mint
regular
examples.
2008
And if
no
you
mint mark
suspect
penny
you have
is
a
very
particularly
common,
fine
any coin with a
example,
confirmed
consider
minting error
having
can
it
become much
graded
more
or
valuable.
certified by a reputable
Known errors to
philatelic
look out for
expert.
include
A
double die
professional
outbursts, with a
certificate
lettering or
can
date
often
appears
make the
slightly
difference
doubled,
between a
off-center
modest sale
strikes,
and a
clip
high-value
planchets, or
auction
even broad
result.
strikes that cause the coin
In
to lose
summary,
its
the
raised rim.
2-cent Farming in the West
These error
stamp from the
coins are usually the result of
1898
mechanical faults
Trans-Mississippi
during the minting
Exposition
process
series
and are highly
is a
sought after by
classic
collectors.
example of how postage stamps
Depending on the
can
type and
capture
severity
both
of the
history
error,
and
values
artistry
can range
in a
from
small,
$10,000
tangible
to
form.
several hundred
While
dollars,
common in lower
especially if
grades,
the coin
it
is in
can be
great
quite
condition and the
valuable
error
in
is
superb
dramatic.
condition, with the best
Also,
examples
don't forget
fetching
the role of
hundreds of
color
dollars
grading
at
in
auction.
determining value.
More than just a means of
Lincoln
postage,
cents are
it is
classified
a
as red,
timeless
RD,
tribute to the
red
spirit
brown,
of the
RB,
American
or
frontier
brown,
and the
BN, based
agricultural
on their
roots of
surface
the nation.
appearance.
Whether you're a
A red
casual
coin has
collector
retained
or a
its full
serious
coppery
philatelist,
luster and is
this
considered the
stamp
most
is a
valuable.
reminder that every
Red
piece of
brown coins
postage
show
has a
partial loss
story
of color,
worth telling.
and brown coins,
Thank you for
especially
joining me
those that are
today
dirty
on
or
Stamps
oxidized,
Old
are the
World
least
UK.
valuable.
I hope you've enjoyed
A
this deep
2008
dive
no
into
mint
the
mark
history
penny that
and
is
market
brown and
value of the
circulated will usually
2-cent
be worth
Farming
face
in the
value.
West stamp. If you love
But if you
hearing the
find a red
stories
coin
behind
with no
beautiful
wear,
and
it
historic
might be worth
stamps,
setting
be sure
aside
to
for
like,
further
subscribe,
evaluation
and
or
share
even
this
professional
video.
grading.
And as always, keep
So, what's
collecting,
the bottom
keep
line?
learning, and keep the world of philately alive and thriving.